The Israeli cybersecurity company that reportedly targeted the phones of activists and journalists is finding itself at the center of a global debate over the weaponization of powerful and largely unregulated surveillance technology. This week, the Washington Post and 16 other media partners reported that the company's military-grade spyware was used to target associates of murdered Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi.
Thursday, United States Senator Ron Wyden called for accountability.
My first question for our nominees is, last year the committee directed the IC to report on what can be done to protect our country from commercial spyware, the kind of threat that is now being reported at the top of the news across the nation. So my question to you, Ms. Dixon and Mr. Olson, is how seriously do you take this threat, and what should the intelligence community and the Department of Justice be doing about it? We're going to have more conversations about it, but I'll just let you all know that I think there's got to be some accountability for spies for hire, and that is going to be a central part of this discussion.
Host of the Katie Halper Show podcast and co-host of the Useful Idiots podcast, Katie Halper, joins us now to discuss. Welcome, Katie.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, and Katie, so there are 535 members of Congress, roughly, once they fill all of the different seats. And as far as we can tell here at Rising, that Ron Wyden criticism that there ought to be some accountability for this rogue spyware is the only public comment made by anyone in the Senate or House on the NSO group scandal, which raises the question, is it even a scandal if nobody talks about it? Meanwhile, the city has been torn apart by a debate over Ben and Jerry's. How do you think about the discrepancy in media attention between these two Israel-related stories?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to tell which is more important and which does more damage and which kills more people and the lives lost and the liberties deprived. Like, you know, pay for spying, breaking the law, or a totally legally protected boycott decision made by Ben and Jerry's not to continue making ice cream in a certain factory, right?
Yeah,
it's tough. It's a tough call. It is a really tough call. What's more important to the global public here?
So, what do you think explains the discrepancy there?
I mean, I think it's the big ice cream lobby.
Anti-Ben and Jerry's ice cream lobby.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it is kind of incredible, and it's funny you just said it was a scandal if no one's talking about it, and of course that's exactly why they're not talking about it, right? As long as you don't turn it into something newsworthy. And just imagine if this was something that Donald Trump had been involved in, right? Something that happened kind of under his. And again, I'm not a Trump person, but I'm trying to reach some people out there who hate Donald Trump, and think hopefully we'll realize that this is the type of thing that under Trump they'd be rightfully up in arms over, and they should be up in arms over it. And this is another example of that. And the fact that more people are talking in the media are talking about a Ben and Jerry's decision, then what should be really a news breaking story is very disturbing, and it really perpetuates as a Jew myself, I have to say that I really don't like when this stuff happens. I think it perpetuates this very ironically anti-Semitic narrative that criticizing Israel is impossible, that the media won't do it. I'm very uncomfortable with that for obvious reasons, and I think that I guess on a more serious note, I kind of appeal to people to stop weaponizing the definition of anti-Semitism to describe any valid criticism of Israel, because that's actually based in an anti-Semitic trope that conflates being Jewish with being pro-Israel. And that's what I see a lot of. And that's actually really dangerous. In addition to, what did the Israeli president say? This is a new form of terrorism through the Ben and Jerry's ice cream decision.
Right, and here the attempt to paint this as anti-Semitic wouldn't even fly, because the media actually is reporting very heavily on the Washington Post, as we said, teamed up with 16 different news organizations. And I wonder if people just aren't willing to kind of think through the implications of what it means, and Israel aside, although they're a leading exporter of this spyware technology, of the implications of private companies and therefore people who can afford the services of these private companies having access to this spyware and malware.
Yeah, I think that people are so used to kind of seeing like civil liberties or even like you guys have talked about the Assange case a lot, right? But these kind of basic ideas of that liberals used to cherish have gone out the window, I think, a little bit. And people aren't thinking them through. And they're really thinking that in order to defeat Trump and Trumpism, we have to, business as usual doesn't work. And we see this with like, after after January 6th, we've seen a lot of attempted anti-surveillance measures or successful anti-surveillance measures. And I think people are not looking at them critically the way that they need to be. And especially because people, I think that these are things that are helping like the fight against, right-wing extremism or white supremacy. And people need to remember that all of these things always disproportionately harm the most marginalized communities. So I think people aren't thinking through those consequences at all, whether it's in terms of this, NSO group or just larger issues of national security.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, the more that we can all be tied up in these conversations about ice cream, the more power is protecting itself. Now, Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma said in a recent tweet, Oklahoma is ready to respond to this boycott. As they have an anti-boycott of Israel law in place, we should immediately block the sale of all Ben & Jerry's in the state and in any state-operated facility to align with our law. Katie, what do you make of Lankford's tweets?
Patriotic.
Yes.
The best.
Makes you want to go wave the flag.
Oh yeah, this is my you were urging people to think through consequences. And at first I didn't think about them, and then I said I tweeted to all the people mocking Israel's president for saying that Ben & Jerry's boycott is a new form of terrorism. I ask you this: have you tried Chubby Hubby? That is something we all have to consider. Have you guys tried it, by the way?
I haven't had Chubby Hubby.
Yeah, I don't remember, to be honest.
What is the Chubby Hubby?
They all blend together.
Well, it is an ice cream vanilla. Hi Ben, hi Jerry. I'm totally open to your sending me some of those, by the way. But it's
sponsor Katie. She's open to it.
And pretzel, and then I think there's some peanut butter involved. But what's so amazing about it is that A, that doesn't sound appealing, and B, it's called Chubby Hubby. That's like a marketing nightmare, but that's how good it is. It's still on the shelves.
Yeah, it's not an appetizing name.
It's not. It triggers all sorts of mixed emotions, but it just speaks to the strength of that flavor that it's still out there. But now I have fantasies of interstate protests that we're gonna have to set up outside of state lines. We're gonna have like Ben & Jerry's like clinics or something, so people can come out. They can't access Ben & Jerry's within the state. We're gonna be there for you. Don't worry.
You've talked about these anti-boycott laws on your show in the past. For people might not realize the aggressive offense that these take to the First Amendment. There are states like Oklahoma that literally have laws that say you are not allowed to participate in a boycott of products from Israel. Yeah, like you can boycott Russian products, you can boycott Chilean products. You can boycott something that's union made or boycott something that's non-union made. Those are all your rights as an American. But one right you do not have is to say that you support a boycott of products from the occupied territories in Israel. You are not allowed to do that.
Right.
It is. It's so absurd. Like, what's the I have to pay for it? Like, what if?
Yeah.
I'm not. I guess I can decide not to purchase it if I say I don't like Chubby Hubby. But if I don't like Chubby Hubby because of some connection to the occupied territories, then I'm breaking an Oklahoma law.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, we've had on Abby Martin on the Katie Halper show and on Useful Idiots, and she's a really great filmmaker who made this documentary, Gaza Fights for Freedom. And she was giving a talk at a university in Georgia, and she was uninvited from this talk because she wouldn't sign an anti-BDS pledge, basically, that is in work that you have to sign and agree to if you're doing work with the state of Georgia in order to sign a contract. Like, she literally wouldn't sign something saying that she would refrain from supporting or promoting boycott, divest, sanction. And she took it to the court, and she won, actually, because that is an infringement of, a First Amendment violation. But it's just obscene, and it's so ironic that you have people who are very pro-America, USA, and Israel, and USA and Israel are two, uniquely democratic nations. And in the case of Israel, in the sea of like barbarism, and in the case of the United States, just like the beacon of liberty, right, among all nations. And they're doing these things that are totally anti-democratic. They're totally anti-constitutional and unconstitutional, and it's in the name of protecting this nation that allegedly, because they're so good on these issues. It's just really stunning.
The beatings will continue until democracy improves.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, actually, it's like everybody, at the end of the day, everybody actually just loves cancel culture, right? Like, they love it. They can't get enough of it.
But you can't cancel occupied territory products.
Yeah,
really,
that's
you can't.
And that's cancel culture that's actually like codified, right? Because that word gets thrown around in so many cases, and there is a whole discussion. There's a spectrum. But when it comes, it's funny because when it comes to Israel, like, it really is something that there's actual consequences. Like, you can get, we've seen people getting fired, getting denied tenure, having talks canceled. But even with these laws exist in multiple states that make supporting or BDS a crime.
Yeah.
And again, if you're kind of like a conservative, you don't want this to be happening. You see how the way I pitch to different people watch the show? But yeah, that's a lot of government.
Eternal optimist.
In the whatever room, in the ice cream room.
Katie Halper, as always, thank you so much.
Thanks.
We'll be back with more Rising after this.